My name is Nicholas Blank, and I'm going to be talking about how to get started with database availability groups in Exchange 2010. DAGs have taken over as the preferred high availability model in Exchange 2010 and supersede all Exchange 2007 high availability and disaster recovery models. The prerequisites for DAGs are quite simple. I have got 3 Exchange servers, one of which is going to be acting as my file share witness, which is 01. 02 and 03 are going to be taking part in the first DAG that I'm going to create. Now the prerequisites include having clustering services installed, which I've done, and making sure that every database is uniquely named within the organization. You'll notice that database is now available under the mailbox node under the organizational configuration node. Also, the paths that the databases are in need to be uniquely named. In this case, I have chosen to host mailbox 2 on D on server 02, and mailbox 3 will be hosted on the volume E on server 03. And as the DAG is built, you'll see that E will start populating with server 03's data. Let's start with creating a database availability group. And I'm going to call it DAG01. The witness server will be mail01, and I'm going to create a directory called file share witness. Since I'm creating a DAG with 2 nodes, the file share witness will act as the majority node. Now I'm going to add members to the DAG. What happens now is that mail 2 and mail 3 are both being configured to be clusters or cluster members. The cluster by the name of DAG01 is going to be built, is going to be registered in Active Directory. The DNS records are going to be configured. The cluster configuration on mail 02 and 03 is going to occur for me. Now, the prerequisite for this is that the remote administration tools are installed on the machine on which we perform this action. Likewise, clustering needs to be pre-installed on both machines or all of the machines that you wish to remotely add to the DAG. I have fast forwarded the DAG edition for mail 02 and mail 03, and that has finished. Now as I refresh, you'll notice that 2 and 3 are both members of the DAGs, although the resources that have been added have been named for me automatically. Now I can see the network interfaces and all the clustering work that has been done for me. As I right click on the DAG and select properties for the DAG, we can see that 02 and 03 are members and are both operational. The file share witness is mail01, and there's the file share witness directory. As a matter of interest, if I were to change that, I could have a look at the PowerShell that would be generated for me, and that would apply. Let's cancel that. Let's go back to our databases and let's add a database copy. We can see that mailbox 2 and mailbox 3 are both hosted on servers 2 and 3 respectively. We can see the unique paths for D and E for mailbox 2 and 3 respectively. We can also see that both databases are mounted and healthy. Let's add a mailbox copy. We'll start with database 3. Now database 3 is going to copy over to the E volume since it is unique on E. Let's add a mailbox database copy. We will select as mail02. We know that mail03 already have a copy of this database. We can see the directory for mail03 has been created, or mbx03 has been created. The log files are taken over as the seeding process starts, and the EDB file is written. That completed successfully, and on refresh we will now see that we have got 2 mailbox copies, both of which are healthy. We'll do the same for mailbox 02. We will create a database copy on server 03. Now you would have noticed that server 01 was an option there. Now server 01 is an option because it is a valid mailbox server. However, if I select it, I'll get an error message because this is not a member of the DAG. The log files are copying over, seeding is taking place, and this should finish in a moment. Right, we've fast forwarded again, and we can see that the database is over and everything's healthy. Now you'd notice that we had an activation preference in the command that was generated. Now that means that for mailbox 2 and mailbox 3, the mailbox activation preference is the first server which they actually are hosted on. Now if I were to change that, then mailbox 2, if the activation preference would be changed to server 03, would be mounted on server 03 first, as opposed to server 02. Now, with multiple copies of databases within the DAGs, this is quite important, as if I have a database that's out of sight, I would want to make the activation preference for that last. So that in the case of a total site failure, it would be the very last database to take over. What we can do now is we can simulate a failover from one server to the other server. We'll just take this column over where we can see which server the mailbox is mounted on and move it over a little bit. Right, now we can see that database 02 is mounted on server 03. Let's right click on that and move the active database to server 03. As I move this over, I can choose the database mount dial settings on the target, which allows me to select how much of a log failure I'm willing to accept. Now I'm going to choose none since my logs are healthy and this is what I expect. However, I can also let Exchange help me along with various other options. Again, since the databases are healthy and both of them were ready to be mounted, since both were healthy, we can see that the failover didn't take long at all. Now, both databases are running on one server, and we can see that the mailbox status reflects that mailbox 02 is on server 03 and it is mounted and healthy. Let's have a quick look at what this looks like in PowerShell. We're going to launch the Exchange Management Shell, and we're going to use two commands to get an idea of how our database is doing. I'm going to change to the root to shorten the command line and clear the screen to unclutter our screen real estate. Let's get our mailbox database copy status. I can also specify servers or databases specifically. And again, I can see where that database is and where it is mounted. The other command which I'll be interested in at this stage is test replication health. Now, test replication health by default runs on the server on which it's connected. I can also run it remotely and get an idea of how healthy all the components that make up the DAG availability or the database availability group are. This concludes the presentation on getting started with database availability groups. DAGs are uniquely powerful in terms of how simple the high availability model in Exchange 2010 has become. And as long as we remember our prerequisites and ensure uniqueness of both the database name and the path in which it is mounted, DAGs are relatively simple to configure. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this presentation.